So that study is actually a really good segue into our next interview, which is with Rick Larkin, and he is the president over at BCB Transport. And what's really fascinating about their team and their office is they are so employee driven and driver driven, and it's one of those moments where you look at a company and you don't necessarily see all of the legwork that they've put in previously. You just see a really nice studio, and then all of a sudden it looks almost intimidating. So Rick, as we bring you on, and before we dive into sort of a lot of the BCB live content, can you tell us a little bit about the company BCB Transport itself and how you got started in trucking?
Hey, Blythe, how you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing well. I love the vest.
You know what? It's all about safety at BCB Transport. For those that don't know, hey, BCB Transport stands for Be Safe, Communicate, and if you can, be on time. We stress nothing more at BCB than being safe and really protecting life. It's who we are. It's what we do, from our drivers to our driver managers to the ownership. Everything about BCB really is about safety. We opened up the doors back in March of 2011. Brian Brzezowski, my business partner, and I opened it up one day, just the two of us. Literally no drivers, no customers, nothing. And, 10 years later, here we are, a little over 300 trucks, quite a few employees. I guess I don't even know the count now that everybody's remote, right? Just a great story with phenomenal customers, phenomenal employees. Brian and I are truly blessed to have what we have here.
Now, had the pleasure of visiting your offices a couple years ago, and I was really blown away at the not only the facilities, but the focus on your team and the culture and driver facilities. Why was that so important to you early on?
Even from the beginning, from when we began the company, we had a belief that we had to, first of all, take care of our drivers. Drivers are so important to this industry, to this country. We had to show them that we were for real, meaning we didn't want to say, hey, if you do this, we'll do that. We felt that we had to go out first and provide who we were. We had to go out and show them who we are, no matter what. This is the company that you're dealing with at BCB Transport. So many times I think people get lost with drivers and saying that, hey, if you do this, we'll do that. And I don't think drivers believed us as our industry anymore. And we had to do it different. We had to say, hey, we know you can do this. We know you're going to do that. And because of that, we're going to go ahead and put our best foot forward first.
And so, with a lot of your communication strategy, I mean, obviously that's changed a lot over the last year, but I remember you talking about how you would bring drivers in for onboarding and you would actually set up a little mobile phone to Facebook live stream out your driver meetings and some of your onboarding sessions. Why was that a good first step into getting into your video journey?
We wanted to make sure that when we brought anybody inside the company, and so we have always done our orientations here. And the reason why we do that first is we want to make sure that they see who we are, to see the amount of work that we do together, the family. Some of our drivers, they do the hashtag family, and that's what we are. We wanted to break bread with our new drivers, and that includes bringing them in and helping them get set up, and then getting them involved in the culture of the company quick. When a driver comes in here and on day one and day two, they're breaking bread with us. Remember, we feed our people right here, especially before COVID. They would come in and we had the food, and it wasn't to go orders. It was actually made right here in the kitchen, inside of in our office. So the culture had to be, show them we're different than anybody else, because we wanted to make sure they knew that this isn't heaven, right? We're not perfect, but when they break bread with you, when you talk to them, sit across a table, I think when you make mistakes, it's easier for them to talk to you and come to you as opposed to leaving you saying, well, that's not what you told me.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And some of those communication tactics that you've had have actually evolved. You're now sitting in what was once an empty office that you transformed into a full-on studio space. What was the catalyst for making that decision that said, hey, we're going to do a little bit something more than a Facebook live stream on a mobile phone, which is fine, but what you have now is fantastic.
Yeah, we when we started it off, it was in an office, and we had two microphones set up, and we would look at each other, and it was the most. I mean, it was us giving it all we had, right? But it needed a little bit more. We felt that our drivers deserved a little bit more. We felt that we needed to make sure that we explained things, we communicated to our drivers a little bit more. And what better way we learned and we believed in that to say, hey, you know what? If we're going to communicate, if we need to talk to our drivers, we want to review safety things with them, we have got to create a platform that allows them to join in and be part of it. And Blythe, with that meant that we had to step our game up. We had to create a show. We have characters on the show. Heck, we got a producer that we hired to produce the show. So it was different, but you know what? If you believe in your drivers, you believe in safety, if you believe in spreading a culture, there's not a better way to do it than how we've done it here. And it's continued to go. We just put our third camera up, Blythe. We have camera one that we're looking at now. We have another camera. And we have one more.
That's amazing.
We're a bunch of idiots, aren't we?
No, I love it because you can feel that energy. I mean, obviously, anyone who's listening to this, that they can feel that energy. We can see it live, obviously, with your safety vest, because you guys have certain personas too that you are developing on certain programming. So break down a little bit about what goes into that. How do you develop a certain persona, and why do they only appear on certain programming? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when we opened up when we began doing the show, and it's still about safety. When we began, it was just Bob Sobiak. Bob's our safety director, and we realized, you know what, we got to create some nicknames here. So he quickly became Buckle Up Bob, and it got to the point that we said, we need to create a show around safety, to make it a better transition to safety and to the weather, because we're going over weather and traffic. So Drive Safe Dave and myself, Sir Rick on the show, we open the show at 7:15 in the morning. At 7:30, Buckle Up Bob comes on. We have Hector from the Ranger Dangers. He comes in and he's going over the safety, the Smith system, ways to get better at safety for our drivers. We have Big Blue, and Big Blue is Brian Brzezowski, my business partner. Listen, he's 6'4". He's got the bluest eyes. I'm scared to look inside his eyes. You have the infamous Shapiro, who runs our operations team. He's on the show. You have Magic Matt. And Magic Matt is a big old stocky guy, and he thinks he can dance. So you know what? We called him Magic Matt, and he comes on the show. We are all in it. We have the producer, that produces things, and he walks down the hallway, and it's so funny. We'll call him the producer. Dave Dover, who is the morning guy, he calls himself Drive Safe Dave. It's like we almost believe we're those people anymore. So it is truly pretty funny, and blessed to have all of this.
And so when you were first getting a lot of your employees involved with the different programming, how did you sort of break down those barriers for them? Because a lot of people that when they see a microphone, when they see the bright lights, they get really nervous and they don't want to participate at all. How did you sort of ease that transition for them to be able to feel comfortable talking about their normal day-to-day job, but in a live streaming environment?
Yeah, it was a struggle to begin with. There's no doubt about it. We had drivers that were what is this about? I mean, why do we have to be on this safety show? And that was the pure reason why we needed them on this show, was because we had to talk about it and we had to break down the barriers. And Blythe, that meant that when Sir Rick, heard something, I had to get it addressed. As an owner of a company, I had to get it addressed, whether it was poor communication, and whether it was maintenance on the trailers, pay, whatever it was. When I heard it, I would address it as Sir Rick. And I think I talked to you, boy, sometimes it's tough with, I'm blessed to have many personalities anyway, but sometimes I have to really focus on, hey, right now I'm Sir Rick. But Blythe, when a moment comes from a driver, when we're talking about something serious, I take that Sir Rick hat off, and I'm talking to them as myself, as an owner of the company. And what has happened, though, they've seen the passion, and Bec- and I think what this has allowed me to do as well as as an owner to be more vulnerable. It's tough as a male being vulnerable. It's tough as an owner being vulnerable. But what we've done is by us being vulnerable, and that can be shedding a tear, opening up. It has created a better environment for them to reciprocate it right back to
Mm.
us.
And so, with all of this content that you guys are creating, sort of break down what BCB Live is, because BCB Live is different from your regular sort of, a typical company website. BCB Live is a live 24-hour a day, 7 days a week radio broadcast that you guys are building in studio. Can you break down what went into that decision making process?
Yeah, so there's a lot of the BCB Live, what we wanted to do is first and foremost create an environment for our drivers. One thing that we preach is it's the BCBs of trucking, and as simple as that sounds, Blythe, it's the BCBs of trucking means that from an ownership to again drivers to our driver managers to customer service to our customers means that we must focus first on the safety of life, protecting life. That's the only thing that's important. Then we have the communication, the BC, the communication part says, hey, if you're tired, you're going to pull over, but we want you to communicate that so we can communicate that to our customers. And finally, that be on time, hey, push that over. So what we wanted to do is create with our drivers that the culture within our company, that culture, so we can at one point take this now and share it with other trucking companies. What I want to be one day is right here behind me. That can say Swift Transportation. It can say Christensen Transportation. We can be so many people right here for you to get your drivers involved with safety and the BCBs of trucking. That's what it's about, Blythe. It's about protecting life. And that means while we continue to improve upon this, we must find a way to keep this going 24 hours a day. We need to be there. And we were there in that ice storm, in that snow that happened. We were open 24 hours. We had our show going 24 hours a day to make sure we communicated with our drivers to let them know it's not safe. You can't go. And Blythe, when what I do believe is this, as a trucking company, we have trucks, so I know what y'all go through. But when you don't tell a driver no, aren't you telling him or her yes? You
Mm.
can't. Sometimes you can't let them make those choices. You as a company have got to make the stance that says you're not going to drive in that wind. You're not going to drive in that snow or rain. You can't make them make that decision. I don't believe it's fair, and I believe drivers need our support to help them make those decisions.
Absolutely, because it's almost like an athlete, like you're saving themselves from themselves. If you have a
Mhm.
concussion, there's independent doctors that are gonna tell them, no, you're not going out on the field. So in that case, you're doing the same for your drivers and your team. But you said something interesting about inviting on technically your competitors in order to use your broadcasting space. What does that sort of look like? Are they gonna come in studio and do shows? Are they gonna do a remote? What does that plan sort of loosely look like?
Yeah, so the plan is Monday through Friday is that their drivers join us as part of our show. They're listening to it via YouTube Live or on our go-to webinar, which is the platform we use today. But 1 hour a week, not much time, their ownership, that somebody from a decision making process, a general manager, a VP from their company is going to be there with us either in studio or at once COVID's kind of over, or we can kind of beam them in like we're doing now, but it's with their drivers only. It's
Hmm.
us talking, it's me with them to keep them comfortable, to with that VP or talking to their drivers, much like I had to do, Blythe, because you're going to hear things that you just have to hear and you need to address. But you know what? If we believe in a reduction of turnover, and if we believe that turnover makes a safer driver, and I think all of us do, the more comfortable they are with your freight, the more comfortable they are with your customers, the more comfortable they are out there on the road and the safer a driver is. And Blythe, at BCB, our goal isn't to make BCB the safest trucking company only. We want this industry, the trucking
Hmm.
industry, to be safer and to do all we can to make sure drivers are making decisions that dispatchers are making decisions, that ownership are making decisions based on protecting life.
And so you talking about safety and how that's been such a core component of your content that you've been creating over the years. How has that evolved into now you're doing more news-based stories? You're covering the Suez Canal blockage of the Ever Given and some of these other hot button issues. How has that evolved and what are some of those topics that you're passionate about covering?
Yeah, so when we're getting this show ready to go, and our goal is to have it ready to go for 8 hours, and around the middle of May, what we're doing is creating some segments, and that means we've got to find folks. We had a DOT officer in here the other day. We want to bring in knowledge to our drivers, knowledge to our customers that have to do with our industry. And I know there's some folks out there doing it right now. But Blythe, what I want to come from is a different angle, an angle that first and foremost is really addressing our drivers. Even if a customer's in here, it's talking to the drivers. Blythe, we go over what we have a state of the union of the company, where we talk about how, what's going on in the market. I believe drivers need to know what's going on in the market. They need to be educated on if the freight's slow, if the freight's heavy, on productivity. They want to be involved with it, Blythe. And that's what we found is that, man, drivers want to be as knowledgeable as you are. They want to know everything that's going on in the market. And so we took that, and that's kind of what this is about. One thing we also took is taking real life situations from our customers, real life questions that they have on the market. And we address those as well. It's in our freight and review. And that's what it is. Those are questions from our customers asking questions like driver shortages. And I talked about utilization yesterday. And you could probably, if you watch that, boy, I am passionate about utilization. I'm passionate about accountability. And while we may have a driver shortage, there are a lot of things that we as a trucking company, we as shippers and receivers can do to maximize more utilization in these tractors.
And so with a lot of these topics, you just mentioned something that was really interesting is that it's not just the driver communications anymore. You're taking some of these videos and some of these topics and you're sending it out to your customers. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. Right after the show today, we're going to create one of our one of the freight and reviews, but it really has to do with a customer and their question asking, "Hey, why the rate increases out of Dallas?" And I'm going to address it to them with the show, send it to them, but I'm going to use that to kind of help educate all the shippers, all the brokers. We have brokers that we know that call us up too and just say, "Hey, why? What is going on? How come I can used to sell this load for $1.90 and now every time I take that load, I'm losing 45 cents a mile? Why is that?" And what we try to do is use the knowledge. And we have a great, we love Sonar here. We love the Freight Waves community, but we use that Sonar data to make sure it makes sense. And Blythe, I think, and I do believe this. I believe because we do trucking, we do brokerage, we have a warehouse, we do intermodal, because we actually participate in all of those, we have a little bit better, maybe understanding of what that data means than most companies do.
And that was going to be my next question is what does your sort of day-to-day process look like? Because it takes a lot of time to look into some of these data points and to come up with where you think the industry is going based off of those data points. So what does sort of your show prep look like each day? Because you're broadcasting every day, I believe.
Early riser anyway. And I was just telling the producer and Drive Safe that, I found myself now having to come in even earlier. I used to would come in at say 4:30, 4:45. And now I catch myself coming in at, setting my alarm and getting here right at 4 o'clock or 4:15. So I can make sure that my work, I still have a real job to do as well. I got to make sure my work is done. So by 6:15 in the morning, I can kind of dedicate myself to reviewing the news, to reviewing the data, to comparing it to yesterday, to seeing what's going on. But Blythe, we've done it anyway. So every day in our meeting with our operations guys on the assets, brokerage, everything we go over this data anyway. We go over it because it's important to use this sonar data to understand what's going on today in that freight market. Who's rejecting loads inbound into locations? Because if you solely rely on DAT or on truck stop payment, well, it runs, 7, 8, 9 days behind. The trends that you're seeing really are a thing of the past. You've got to use that knowledge with what's happening today to try to make the best educated decision for the next 7 days.
And what kind of response are you getting from your drivers, employees, customers? I'm sure they're loving it.
No, they absolutely love it, and it's so after I sent the video yesterday on the productivity, well, immediately got a phone call from a large customer right here that says, "Hey, listen, I need help. Can you do that same thing for us regarding freight out of Dallas?" And I'll just tell you, into Oklahoma City. That's what they're asking. And I'm going to use that and go back and review what's going on with these, the mid tenders, the freight going under that 400 market. What is happening to that so I can help it make sense to them? But what it does, and the greatest thing about it is I learn so much more as well, because I'm
Mm.
seeing different trends when they ask these questions. But what we really wanted to convey to our customers is that help us help you. Help us help you tell your story, because as freight rates go up, I don't think people know what to do. We as logistics, whether you're in transportation, you always go back. Well, that's not what was happening last year. And Blythe, right now, last year doesn't count.
Hmm.
So you've got to really kind of focus on the trends from really September, October, when the freight market became what it is today. The trends from last year, they're out. It was COVID. And it's still COVID, but it was a dip in COVID. So you can't use the same numbers, the same rates. It's out. And we've got to now continue to talk to our customers about putting in maybe 30 or 60-day rates as opposed to year contracts.
Hmm. And so, with knowing all of that insight and the fact that you're studying this data every single day, where does that, as far as like the future planning, you're also planning to incorporate, especially from the weather side of things, you're planning to incorporate some driver footage as they're out on the roads, and break that down a little bit for us, because I thought it was really interesting when you mentioned about different weather reports and using drivers as sort of like those in the field reporters.
Yeah, so the one of the things that we have, and again, this right here behind me, hey, just a great piece of technology. It's a touchscreen. It allows us to interact with what's going on. We can have behind us the weather going on. We can have our drivers, again, the 300 plus drivers with forward facing cameras. So when we see every 15 minutes on the hours, we discuss Atlanta, Georgia, as we see our drivers going through there, out of there, we can kind of log into those cameras, give our folks out there, other truck drivers out there, a view of what's happening. We become better than, like the weather station. They have 3 or 4 people out there when the hurricanes are going on. I got 300 throughout the country ready to share information with other drivers to make sure that they see what we see. When the weather's bad, I want to show them. I want them to log into our station and know that when weather's tough across the country, this is the place to be. We're going to look at it. We're going to show you real footage from our trucks or other drivers that we're associated with to bring you real live material, so you as a driver from any company can make a better decision. You as a customer know what's going on in your lanes, and it's a shame still that today, when there's bad weather in Texas, if you're a customer and you're based in Miami, Florida, you just don't feel it. And I want to find a better way to get this information out to everybody.
So you're using driver footage. You have employees, especially those from safety and HR, doing programming on the shows. Tell us a little bit about your plans to expand in the future, because I understand that you're trying to go to 8 hours a day of live programming.
Yeah, it's going to be, thankfully we have I got outside help in here. I didn't do all of this myself. As a matter of fact, I did none of it. I was joking with the guys because they're sitting in here. I was going to say, how am I going to kind of tell them, hey, I did this whole, aside from hanging this 85-inch TV, I did it all. I did nothing. I got some great folks in here that have helped us. We use the Monday.com app. We use the Canvas. Is that right? There we go. To help us find this material, to put the news stories in place, to help us and this is new for us to find a way to schedule an 8-hour day, an 8-hour segment between. We have a Rockopedia segment that's been going on for a little bit. That's from 10 to 10:45, and it goes over music from Music Man Mike, one of our folks on here. Him and the producer, they go over it with Joe Santiago up in the Northeast. They have crazy rock concert stories, and that's what it's about. It's about Rockopedia, things that just kind of get you excited, that you learn a little bit. You can participate on these calls. You can raise your hand. We use GoToWebinar, and we can get you involved with that as well. We have an HR segment every Thursday at 10 a.m. The same thing at 10 a.m. is a big segment. That's Shelly Brown from our HR department. Her and Christy's HR in our show going over HR information. But on this segment, they're going over it for everybody. Things you need to know, things you need to think about. And we, once again, can get information, get phone calls or emails, and give them ask them some questions that come from you or from our drivers or other drivers out there that just have a question on maybe basic principles of what goes on at a company. But we want to make sure that, we have we have a DOT officer that's going to be here once a month. We want to get him involved with people, telling them what do they need to know about? What are the things that he looks for? We want to help find places and ways to educate our listening audience. And our listening audience are the drivers, the ones that we love and we need. We want to bring people in to help educate them on items that they want. So we're just going to have to, from that to insurance people to a truck to financing, owner operators. I want people in here that can make a difference and give people out there listening real help.
And so a lot of your content sounds extremely valuable from just a company perspective, not just a driver perspective, but company wide, to help with that educational gap. Now, you guys have a lot of really cool, like fancy tools inside of that studio space now. But for some companies who are looking at just wanting to get started, just, sort of dipping their toes in the water, what kind of advice would you give to another trucking company out there that wants to communicate similarly to what you guys are doing?
So, I have a great, when we put this together in here, we have a gentleman named Jack from his productions place. He did it for us. I would say, hey, I'll put him on our website. Contact him if you really want to take it to that next level. But I think, first and foremost, hey, play around with it for a minute, right? I mean, get comfortable on it. Make sure that you have the right person that can make themselves vulnerable to our drivers. Make sure that you give them the best. And Blythe, I was going to say this is make sure that when you do it, you stay committed to it. You've got to have that show every single day. And one more thing, and a little piece of advice to anybody. Hey, I pay our drivers to listen to this. I pay them.
Oh, wow.
Yes, we pay them Yes, that's why our listening audience is probably so big. But we pay our drivers, Blythe, because I believe that they need to come in here and listen to who we are about safety. And so our company drivers get paid 3 cents a mile every quarter. They get paid that. So they're getting, $8 to $1,000, $1,200 a quarter for listening to the show, for being part of the safety. And Blythe, I believe I had to pay them to come on here. Otherwise, what's the real incentive? It's just like work. And I had to get them another reason to allow me to talk to them. And owner operators here, we pay them 5 cents a mile to make sure that they get it. So we're investing in over $400,000 a year back out to our drivers because it's safety. And Blythe, if you want if as an owner, if you as a company, you want to make that decision, you know what? If you believe that what you're going to tell them is worth it, pay them to be on it. Give them a reason, because kind of going what I was telling you before, you can't just say, hey, be safe, and then I'll give you this. We're going to invest in you. As a matter of fact, I believe in your safety as a driver. I believe that I'm going to give you, and we're going to be involved with each other so much that I'm going to invest in you to be on this show. And it's worked. It's done that. Blythe, when we finished up last year, our lost runs were under a half a cent a mile. And I'll tell you, from an insurance provider, they love you at 4.5, 5 cents a mile. And we were under a half a cent a mile. we focus on safety, we focus on driving. If you really do believe that safety is a value, isn't it worth investing into your drivers to get them to be part of who you are? And before you know it, they're, I like to say they would be on it anyway, but who knows, right? Doesn't hurt
Well,
paying
it's
somebody.
right. And it's almost sounds like, and not almost, it sounds like it's an investment into the quality and the overall production and your safety ratings. It's showing in your insurance rates. So when companies talk about, well, why should I get started with video and what's the ROI with it? Why should I get started with content marketing? You're really proving it already as just taking a different angle because you're creating that content in house. You're paying the drivers, and then at the end of the day, you're still getting that positive ROI from it all.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And it kind of goes back to when we open up our doors and into how we pay drivers, into giving our first, putting our best foot forward before we ask them to make sure that we do our part. It kind of goes into the same exact mantra, meaning that, yes, we're going to pay you to be on here. We believe in your safety. We know that if you're on this show, you're going to be a safer driver. And we know, and we've got to believe as a company that, our return on that investment is huge and we're going to get it back. We're going to get it back in premiums. And anybody out there that runs a trucking company that knows the costs that I'm talking about means that's a phenomenal number. Blythe, I'm proud to say we did receive a rate reduction in our insurance this year. I don't know any other companies or many companies that can say the same thing. In the times we're in, you got a rate reduction. We sure did. And I'm so proud. And we shared that with our drivers. We want them to believe, and we're not bashful. We want them to know that hey, we at BCB, we've got to make money. You've got to shut your truck off. You got to reduce your idle times. You've got to reduce your out of route. You've got to do and maximize all you can because you've got to want us to make money. Because if we make money, that's how we pay you. That's how it goes back to you. So we're not scared to talk about items like that too. And I do think it's because we've become so comfortable amongst each other that we can share things like that. It's kind of scary, I think, for some people to say, hey, we got to make money. But it's neat to
It's
do that. It's
reality.
neat to talk about items like that. And I'll tell you, when we had that snowstorm in here, we talked about it. We told them, hey, we're gonna lose $1.5 million, and we did. That snowstorm, we didn't run. We lost over $1.5 million. And that next day, with our drivers on board, we called them all in. We gave them a rate increase. We gave them a pay increase that same week because that's when it was scheduled to happen. We didn't push it aside. We still gave them that pay increase. We still gave them those quarterly bonuses. We did what we could because we believed in who they are, and we gave them a 10-week plan. That for us meant that, hey, we're not going to make it back overnight. You're not going to make this money back that you lost overnight. But in 10 weeks, we're going to make it back. We put a plan together with them and with us, and we're right on target. I couldn't be more proud that we're pulling it off.
We've got a couple minutes left. Do you have a favorite story or a favorite moment that has happened ever since you started creating content and broadcasting it out to your drivers?
I'll tell you this. There's been some extremely emotional moments. We had a moment last week on it was our Thankful Thursday. It's our day that we say thank you to our drivers. We had one of our driver managers come in here, Gabi, and it was neat to see. We had just lost Blythe, one of our drivers with COVID. We just found out, and it was emotional, and to see the emotion, the love that she had for that driver, from our other drivers, from our other driver managers, the pain they were going through. It made me proud. I'm not going to say funny, but I was as proud as I could have been, knowing that our people really do love each other. It's it's an attitude that says we're not going home until we're all taken care of. It's a thing that says we are family, #family. This is BCB Live, and our folks live it.
That's a great story. I mean, not a great story, but it just speaks to the family environment that you guys have cultivated, not just, through your content, but over years and years within the building and doing that hard legwork. All right, Rick, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find more of your shows and your broadcasting and your work?
Hey, we have a bcbtransport.com. You can go on the right hand corner and you'll see BCB Live up. You can click that and you can go to our radio station. Look for us as well on our Facebook page. You can also see us on our YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel. You can go review all of our past episodes and have a good time. Get involved in safety. It does start with you.
Thank you so much, Rick.
Thank you, ma'am. Take care of yourself. Good seeing you.
Good seeing you as well. What an interview. I mean, that is just Rick is one of those guys that obviously you can tell from that interview that he is very infectious as far as his energy is concerned, and it's one of those moments where you just kind of have to take a step back and just realize all of the things that they've accomplished, because you could see the fancy studio space and the touch screen televisions and but they didn't start there. That's only what you see now. And so just keeping that in perspective whenever you're thinking about your own content journey and your own content plan and how you plan to create in the future and attract drivers, save on insurance costs. They started in using their meetings, their driver meetings that they would bring folks in to the office and then live stream to Facebook using a mobile phone. That's how they got started. And so it became such a great mechanism for communication to their team that they kept building on it. And when you can take those small baby steps into to recognizing that you can use these communication methods to your advantage, it really goes a long way. And as Rick can say, or as he said earlier, it's showing up in his bottom line now. He didn't start off with that intention of it showing up in a revenue report, but now he's able to go back and he's able to see, okay, these investments that we made into our people, into the communication to our people, is paying off in other ways. And to have a reduction in insurance really goes a long way, I think, for a lot of companies. And that should be really eye-opening for anybody who's on the fence of if they even want to think about starting to create more video content, because that's really what this show has been about, is not only using video but using it in a smarter way where you're doing long form content, you're doing short form content, and you're blending the two together, but you're doing it ultimately with the goal that you're going to increase the communication between your team, and future prospects are going to see that, whether they're drivers, whether they're employees, they're going to see that going on. And eventually, when they're ready to make a job switch or they're tired of their current company, they're going to remember those little moments. And so you have to ask yourself, do you want to be a company that sort of treats their content like BCB does? Or do you want to just keep skating by and not worrying and not investing and not adjusting with the times? Because COVID has taught us a lot of things, that change is inevitable. And now with everybody, sort of, not everybody anymore, but most people have the experience of working from home now. Most people have a webcam that they're working off of, and making those, using the equipment that you already have, using a cell phone camera and using the microphone on your cell phone are easy ways to get started. And you're only using that as a communication mechanism, as if you're having, I'm looking at a camera right now, but I'm looking at it as I'm having a conversation with somebody, a friend that's sitting right across the table from me. And so treating your communication like that really, really goes a long way. And so, like most things in life, if you have gotten started on that journey, you can use your own experience in order to get better. And so, studying your own tape. After this show is over, I'll go back and I will watch the video to see where I messed up. Am I leaving my mouth open? Am I hitting the mic? Am I talking with my hands too much? Probably. I'm not sure that's something that I'm ever going to be able to fix, though. But there are these little moments within each and every show, each and every broadcast that you create, that you can find little ways to get better. And that's exactly what we've seen from Rick and the BCB team. That's what you see from here with our work on Cyberly. The first episode that we broadcasted, I was a different shade of blue. And now you can see that it's kind of lit a little bit better. We had an autofocus problem last week. We got it fixed for this week. We got new cameras coming in. We're making those baby steps, because we will never reach perfection, but it's fun trying to get there and trying to make little incremental improvements, so that a year from now, when you look back on some of the content that you've created, or maybe even the video communications that you're creating, that you can look back and say, hey, I've gotten a lot better. So just keeping that all in mind, study the tape. Treat yourself as an athlete would. Watch film of yourself. Make those tiny adjustments. Make those tiny improvements, because in a year from now, years from now, you will look back and you will say, you'll be thankful that you did, Hopefully it'll show up in an ROI report like it has for Rick. Maybe it'll result in an interest rate reduction, which is additional ways to save money. So keeping all of those in mind, let's get better about creating video.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Digital Dispatch podcast. As always, you can find each show I publish along with more insight over on my website, digitaldispatch.io. If you like this podcast, then I think you'll love another show that I host, Cyberly, which covers the attention economy, B2B marketing, tech, and how it all ties into the world of logistics. That show airs every Thursday from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live on FreightWaves TV. There are also some links to my social media accounts along with my products and services that might be of interest to you. You can find them in the show notes or again over on my website at digitaldispatch.io. If you found this episode interesting and or entertaining, be sure to share it with a friend. Word of mouth is the best kind of marketing, and since podcast discoverability has and remains an issue in this medium, I trust and rely on folks like yourself that will share it with those who would also find it useful. Until next time, my name is Blythe Brumleve, and I will see you real soon.